Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me now, I have Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. And Dr. Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I've been having conversations, first with Dr. Monday Ubani on the President's nationwide address this morning and legal issues surrounding the protests. And then, of course, we had Honorable Eseme Iyibo, Special Advisor, Media and Public Affairs to the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio. And then, we had our team at the Paris Olympics giving us an update today with messages of hope about the performance of the female basketball team and Favors Ufili and Chukwebuka in shot put and other, Konyisola Ajayi and others who may well put Nigeria's name on the medals table. Professor Aworawo, let me start with you.
Yeah, the president's speech this morning, Monday Uba and Iyibo spoke about the speech. Of course, both of them agreed that there was a need for a speech to be given, and the speech was given. Many of the issues affecting the economy and the way forward were addressed in the speech. I agree with them to that extent. And then the comment by Ubani that you could see humility and serious-mindedness in the president's, mien as he presents the speech. That also is right. But of course, there are those who have also picked holes in the speech. Professor Shinka is quoted to have said that he's surprised that the high-handedness of the police and leading to the death of so many people was not extensively addressed in the speech. I thought so too, that greater attention ought to have been paid to that. And I'm really surprised that the police took that approach. They didn't learn from the Kenyan experience. This attitude of using live bullets on peaceful protesters. I'm really surprised that the police did that. Although we need to differentiate between peaceful protesters and those, criminals who took advantage of what has happened, of the protest to try to loot and steal and all that in Kano and some other places. We made that distinction. But for peaceful protesters that the police decided to use live bullets on, it's really surprising. And like Professor Shinka said, if it was actually that was his perspective, that the red velvet, the protesters in France over many weeks, there was the civility in which the police addressed them. We expected that, and we expect the president to pay more attention to that in that speech. It was not there. What is left now is walking the talk. The economy needs to improve. Quality of life also needs to improve. Nigerians must wait to see how the speech translates to reality. There is one last thing I want to say about the speech and then action. I'm not sure whether the government are conscious of one thing that has angered Nigerians in addition to the level of poverty, the ostentatious nature in which those in government have carried on. They talked about 21 billion naira house either renovation or something. It's almost incomprehensible at a time like this when the economy is in this dire straits. We talk about the presidential fleet, maybe $100 million or something like that. At this time, those are issues that I think people in government, beyond speeches, need to pay attention to. Apart from poverty, the way government has spent money is one thing that, has angered Nigerians, and that needs to be addressed as solutions are being, found to the fundamental issues in the economic downturn. Another thing is how to prioritize. If I were the president, I wouldn't want to spend 8 trillion, 10 trillion, one coastal road, when agriculture has not received enough attention so people can have food to eat. You know, prioritizing to see what to do now, what to defer, what to do later, and save every kobo for development because the money is not there. Since the money is not there, any waste will be taking something away from the quality of life of the Nigerian. You know, these are the issues as far as the speech is concerned. Both of them spoke along the same line, of course, expectedly, for Sime, expectedly, but for Monday Ubawe, that's his perspective. And one final thing, of course, one other thing he said was that the protests should stop at this point and then wait for government to what government does. I also think so. Especially given the violence that has taken place, loss of lives, I think the point has been made. So let's wait 3 months, 4 months down the line, see what happens moving forward. Then the sports. 3 things I also want to say about sports. First are the positives. Ajayi, Favor Fili, and then the Chukwebuka. They've done very well. And then, of course, the female basketball team. Unprecedented, and but they've done it, as they say. So we wish them all the best. We wish all of this will translate to medals. So it won't be like the last couple of Olympics we attended that one, we just got 1 bruise from football, and we're happy. One, we got nothing. So we hope something, will come from all the efforts. That's one. Second is what we have always said. We've said this for decades. There are so many medals in swimming. Why have we not developed capacity in swimming? Phelps won 28 medals, 28. 23 of them gold. Nigeria has only won 1 gold from as long as you can remember to date. Only 1 gold medal. Only 1 man in swimming won 23 gold medals. 28 in all.
So there's also Katiledeki, who has won 13 medals in total.
Yeah, exactly.
Majority of them gold medals.
Exactly. So what is happening?
All these people in Niger Delta, instead of them to swim,
even me,
they will
develop capacity.
Yeah, one of them. They are going to Olympics to give us gold.
Very well. All I need are the techniques.
We're making noise here.
No. All I need. Don't teach me the techniques.
Okay.
Teach me. I also do long jump. I used to jump above my height.
Exactly.
When I was growing up, I play football. I jump. I'm an enthusiast. Anyway, so that is what we need to do moving forward. We should more develop capacity in swimming. There are too many medals there for us not to have anybody going for. And we have all that it takes. Just those few things we need to do. So that we can we win 1 medal in 3-4 Olympics in the giant of Africa. No. So that is the second thing. And then finally, the administration itself. You know, Philip was supposed to register for 100 meters.
Yes.
He was not. It's an embarrassment. We should cover our faces in shame. She might have won a medal in 100 meters. She's at almost her height at this point. Yeah. But for some reason, the minister is appealing to her, focus on the ones that you have listed for and all that. But how would they forget? It's almost incomprehensible. Well, so these are things that they need to address at the
Minister John promises that there will be consequences. What those consequences will be for the administrative negligence remains to be seen. Professor Anthony Kila.
Well, we start from the speech. I mean, on a personal note, let me gauge the speech the way, because I'm a speechwriter and a teacher. Let me gauge the speech this way. Normally, and students at CIAPS will know this, PhD and postgraduate students will know, you gauge a speech using 4 contents, maybe 4 elements. Content, construct, impact, and delivery. The delivery was not very great, but for, President Tinubu has never claimed to be Obama or Harris. So at least he stood up to deliver it, He did it to his best of ability. He didn't waffle throughout it. So, fair delivery. I think the content was good. I think the construct was good as well, in terms of the chosen words, the sequence. I think it was a well-written speech. The problem comes when it comes to impact of the speech, because the impact of a speech is judged by those listening to the speech and how a speech meets their expectations. To that extent, I would say the speech was a good but incomplete speech. It was good for all it said, but it's worrisome for what it did not say. That speech did not show the president, conceding anything to the protesters. It has been said, and I do not want to overflog it, that it was light on regret. It is not enough to be humble and regretful about the fact that people were bruised or killed. The good commander-in-chief should say, tomorrow I am calling the IG and we're investigating those who killed them. I take charge because I regret it happened. I can regret. The president cannot regret. The president must act by deed, and that is missing there. The other thing is, I think, if the president is saying people should stop protesting, he should say to them, stop protesting because I will do A, B, C. The optics of government overspending and wasting money at a time when people are suffering is a bad thing. That is one low-hanging fruit he could have addressed in that thing, saying, because of this, we're going to suspend certain kind of expenditure. It's a populist move, in knowledge and in conscience, I must say, because in reality, all the money that government is spending, as an economist, you look at it and it won't really change the economy, even if they stop buying cars for themselves.
It will show something.
But it will show a lot more than something. It will show that we're in it together.
Yeah.
Part of the problem I think the president and the presidency had is that from day one, when there was supposed to be honeymoon, suffering started. Well, from day two, the evening of day one. To that extent, the president appears like somebody who got married, went on honeymoon, and beat up his wife the first night because she was snoring. But after you do that, it is difficult to then be remorseful and kind and helpful, because you've already damaged the relationship. Because from the day you married, from the next day, what happened is suffering, is pain. You can't say, I beat her because she's snoring, I want to correct her from that snoring. You've already inflicted pain. So the presidency, including the ministers and all the advisors, need to understand that their task now is uphill from now on, because they have created a lot of pain in people. And there was distrust. One, because of the removal of subsidy, the exchange rate, the increase in price, the energy cost. People are suffering, then the optics of then seeing those who caused their suffering to be enjoying makes them distrust government. So to that extent, the president needs to know that it is not enough to say, I am building for the future, bear with me. He has to go and take some cogent step to regain the trust. And the way to do it is not by talk anymore. It has to be thinking and acting and thinking outside the box. I believe that if the president wants to tell people to stop protesting, for example, and maybe let us assume that they're truly in a fixed position where they cannot reverse subsidy because the money is gone. They need to show they're taking another way of spending, like prioritizing, for example. But they also need to say, okay, leave the streets, let everybody go back to their states or local government, and I will send all the ministers. After all, 36 ministers at least, each minister comes from a state. I will send all the ministers back to their state. I will send all the senators back to their state. Go and have town hall meetings instead of protesting, so we can explain to you why we cannot do A, B, and C. And here is my challenge to the protesters. Now, I challenge the protesters to go back, whether to the room or to the street. I don't care where they go. I'm not going to tell them to stop. I've done so much protest in my life that I feel like a hypocrite telling people not to protest. I will tell them to go back. One thing, though, I've always wanted to do during the protest, they can do now, this generation, is to go back in their meetings and come up with an alternative plan of governance. Say, give us the data from the NBS, that's the Bureau of Statistics, the National Bureau. Look at the data and say, here's another way to govern instead of this one, so that they can give input.
Can't be sure of the data.
Well, use the one you have, at least. Use the one you can correct it. And if you come and say, if they come and present it to Dr. Abati, I'm sure you correct them. Maybe harder than you corrected the essay to the Akpabio man, the one that said something that people saw on video was not said. Maybe you go harder on them and make sure they didn't, they said it right, or you tell them to make a list like they did to that poor woman. Say to them, list for me what exactly you would do with this amount. But it's a good way of building a future. So it's not just about protest, but it's also about building. If we want a sustainable future, a future that is different from leaders just saying, oh, opposition is sponsoring them. Oh, they want to remove me. That is just indolent and self-centered way of thinking. If we really want something, if we really care about our Commonwealth, the way to do it is to get people involved by telling them to come to the table with ideas. Ideas, and you don't need to say stop asking them who their leaders are. You can't define people's anger for them. It's this thing that people do, it really upsets me. Don't ask them for their leaders. ask for content. Let us limit our content to what they're doing. I think that that's a good way forward. I will not talk about the Olympics because he speaks for us. He's the sportsman.
Well, Yemi, you were at the barricades, right?
Yeah, I was there Thursday and Friday.
Enough is enough.
Thursday and Friday. I'll pick up from where Dr. Kila left off. And I would just speak to the Akpabio one really quickly. I think just to emphasize that point, because what I did hear him say was that Akpabio didn't make that statement. But what we did see on video was him saying, let them continue to protest while we continue to eat. It's on video. It's not that, it wasn't said in a closed room. It was said publicly. Two things, I mean, just context, so I don't rehash what he has said. A reminder, and this is the context for where I approach this. From the Constitution, it says the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a state based on the principles of democracy and social justice. It follows that to say sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this Constitution, derives all its powers and authority. I say that to say that the posturing that we're grateful that the president came to speak to people, we should appeal to him like a father, I find quite disgusting. He offered himself for service. He campaigned. He spent money. The result of the elections, as debatable as they might be, he is now the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So engaging the citizens that you said you wanted to serve should not be seen as a favor. And I think that's important when we think about the context of this conversation and how people approach the fact that he did finally address citizens on day 4 for a protest that he had almost a month's notice was going to happen. That's number one. Number two, I also think it's important in the context of when we talk about protesters, that we don't forget that in allowing the police to get away with killing people, with hurting people, with tear gas, live ammunition, while we say that, oh, that it's been 2 days, everybody should go back because hoodlums will come, they'll take it over. It is the job of security agents to keep Nigerians safe. So constantly making it okay for the police not to do their jobs or to do their jobs violently is a challenge. It's not the protesters' fault that the police are not doing their jobs. It's not the protesters' fault that when we see people who are behaving badly and we hand them over to the police let them go before our very eyes. That should not be our problem. And I'll end with this. A few civil society organizations thought it was important in framing what has happened so far and why the president's speech was very disconnected from the reality of his cabinet or the actions of the government. And I'll read a few things. The vice president labeled protest organizers bandits and idiots. Nothing happened. The secretary to the government of the Federation, with disdain at a press conference, described the protests as useless. The Senate president, I've mentioned the one about eating. The Minister of State for Police Affairs joined an anti-protest protest. Several ministers, while holding press briefings, had posters calling for anti-protest protests as their backdrop. And the police, Nigerian police, fired tear gas and live ammunition. The two gentlemen have spoken about why the president should have spoken to that. So I say all of this to say that the president's speech cannot be taken in isolation from the context of the people that work around him and their actions and their words.
Well, so can I just something? The Honorable Isime Eyibo, I'd like to go to his local government. Anybody can tell me where the local government is. I want to visit in this August to go and verify all those things he has said and perhaps enjoy it because he has painted an isolated case in Nigeria.
Very quickly.
Yes.
Still on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's speech, he has once again justified his administration's move to eliminate fuel subsidies in Nigeria, describing it as a critical step to stave off bankruptcy and to steer the nation's economy towards sustainable growth. Speaking at the World Economic Forum special meeting on global collaboration, growth, and energy for development, held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Tinubu acknowledged the challenging nature of the decision to end fuel subsidies, but underscored its necessity for Nigeria's future. In a statement released by presidential spokesman Ajuri Ngelale, the president outlined the measures taken to expedite Nigeria's economic recovery, including the controversial removal of fuel subsidies and the management of the nation's currency, which he described as a move to eliminate corrupt practices and arbitrage. Tinubu emphasized that while the decision to remove subsidies was difficult, it was a hallmark of leadership to make tough choices when necessary. Now, in Riyadh, and again this morning, the president has made it clear that the economic reforms that his administration has embarked upon, removal of fuel subsidy, abolition of multiple exchange rates, have been to the benefit of the country. He says, for example, debt service has been reduced. Government now has more revenue, and that revenue is being channeled into funding the manufacturing sector, funding SMEs, providing student loans, providing skills, scale-up skills for young people. I mean, he generally talked about the positive side of his economic reforms. But yet, Nigerians are saying that, oh, the fuel subsidy should be restored. What do you think? I mean, the president says no going back on economic reforms. At least it was very clear in that regard about the demands by Enough is Enough and the other civil society groups. Yemi, Adamolekun, let me start with you this time around.
People who are not satisfied.
People are not satisfied. I think for me, what I saw in the statement, you're right. He mentioned a number of things, but if maybe import duties, even importation takes time, but a lot of the things, the majority of the things he mentioned were long-term. So he talked about CNG, conversion, talked about agriculture and trying to farm hectares of land, and a few other things. To the point that Dr. Kila made earlier, there weren't specific things that spoke to specific demands in terms of immediacy and what the administration was doing. I mean, I'll have to look at the numbers again to speak specifically to the numbers. But I think what's also very important is the point that we made earlier. Over the last couple of speeches that the president has given, he's always talked about sacrifices. The Nigerians need to make sacrifices for these economic policies and be a bit patient. But Nigerians are making sacrifices, but the government is running as normal. So yes, somebody makes the point that they've cut international travel. And this is the point that you're trying to make, that what does that really look like? But the things that get amplified in the way that the government works is in buying a presidential yacht, buying a presidential jet. So ab initio, it's as if we enter the government knowing we don't have money, I'm trying to make reforms, everybody has criticized the way subsidy was removed, because you removed it without cushioning it. Not only that, there's also the possibility, as some have said, again, I haven't looked at the numbers, that we're actually paying more now for subsidy than we're paying before. That an economist can come and help analyze that. But I think thirdly to that point as well, is that we've complained about crude oil theft for so long. And he also talked about he's made these changes so that the people who were making money illegally or whatever could be curtailed. But who has been prosecuted for that? Again, as I said before, except for the former central bank governor, there's nobody else that I'm aware of that has been prosecuted for any of these things sabotaging the Nigerian economy. So that's where the disconnect is for a lot of Nigerians, because let's also not forget, you and I can have this kind of nuanced conversation on television. But for the average Nigerian, it's, I mean, not even average, what I'm trying to say is that I can be feeling the pain of increased prices, but then still have a conversation with you about exchange rates, crude oil pricing, blah, blah, blah. But for someone who the reality is just about food, being able to pay school fees, being able to live, being able to pay rent, the nuances that we have don't cut it. And that is a challenge for the administration to be able to communicate that, what that means. Or more importantly, what are the short-term measures that you're putting in place to make life easier for Nigerians? I mean, the last big deal we had about social protection programs was under a minister that is being probed for stealing money. And then the other lady, I forget her name, that's also said she didn't know that she had transferred the money to her personal account or whatever it was, and she's returning it. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that we're hearing. Or the lady that took palliatives that were meant for people and gets rewarded with a government position in charge of a fund. I mean, we can't have these things and think they are not connected. Yeah. So the president can't be speaking loudly around CNG and all of that. CNG, it's not affecting my life right now. What's affecting my life is you seeming to reward people that are undermining you technically and making my life a bit difficult.
Professor Kila?
Well, I think the president, legitimately keeps underlining and emphasizing what they are doing and what they hope to achieve. But there is a sort of navel-gazing, insular view in that kind of attitude. Because in reality, look, whether you like it or not, and I'm very sorry because, there's some people who, I don't know what happens. Well, perhaps Ruben Abati has a key to that. They go to this Aworawo, to this thing, and something happens to people's brain or mind or soul. Because there are people who I knew in the past, readers who know the essay I'm referring to. There are people who I knew in the past who did not reason this way. There's some basic things you can understand. Two things. Number one, long-term reforms, we don't know how it's going to end. It might end up badly.
Exactly.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
Immediate effect, we can see. And what is the immediate effect? It is suffering. So if you're trying to help people to say, I am doing this so Nigeria can be a better place, and in the meantime people are suffering, that is what you need to be addressing. That is what should be the emergency. Look, I go back to that analogy of the honeymoon. If on the day of the honeymoon, 29th May, whilst everybody was celebrating and happy, at least those who voted, and even those who did not vote the president and who are contesting them, if you had come up, instead of that spirit that made him suspend fuel subsidy, if you had come with a spirit that said, as from today, we're going to an agric revolution because in 9 months' time, I want to crash the price of food in Nigeria. And whilst doing that, then I'm going to do other things. I am sure the story will be different today. This idea, and it's a very dangerous attitude to governance, any kind of governance, corporate or community governance, where the actors keep insisting on what they have done, the efforts, rather than the effects of the efforts. It's very dangerous because you see in church, they teach us one thing, that you need to, before you can get atonement and improvement, you need to recognize your sin. You need to recognize your shortcoming, not vaguely, not generally. You need to say, I stole, I confess. Once you can accept your shortcomings, that is where there is hope for redemption. In this case, in the secular world, for improvement.
Nigerians are very good at going to church. They don't exhibit.
No, they don't confess in most of their churches.
They don't exhibit what they learn.
No, they just pay for mercies and miracles. They need to learn to do
Aworawo,
things. Yes.
Don't worry, the Oro festival people,
They don't come.
Where are these?
we didn't see them.
We our people.
So
There was a joke on protest ground on Friday that is not Oro, is Oro.
It's Oro.
No, that's Oro. Is what happened to them.
Okay.
That's why we didn't see them.
Professor Aworawo. So just leave all this religious things.
Yeah. The issue of subsidy, I'm surprised they are still making comments that subsidy is removed. There is subsidy now. They just say on May 29th, the price of PMS, AGO went up.
Yeah.
Not that government official came to say last year, 2023, they spent 3.2 trillion. This year, they will spend 5.4 trillion. That is from a government official. So when I keep hearing the comment that we have removed subsidy, which subsidy? The one, the same official of government has come to say last year, 3.2 trillion. This year, they will 5.4 trillion. So subsidy is not removed. What has happened is an increase in the price of
petrol.
Yes, because the landing cost is about, they say about 1,000 naira. So if you brought something in for 1,000 naira, and you are selling for 600, 700.
We are a land of miracles.
So
you see, Ruben Abati does not
they should stop making this comment.
That's part of our miracle.
No more subsidy. No, that one is not in doubt. Yemi said whether a government official came to say, to confirm what, many...
Can I push on that, Dr. Aworawo?
Yes.
If that's the case, and this is now fundamental to why there is a challenge. So even the dishonesty of the supposed policies. So I've made painful decisions, I've removed subsidy, we're all benefiting from it, yet we're still paying subsidy.
Yeah.
Subsidy. No, I know, and then also our currency is devalued. So technically, probably in dollar terms,
yes,
we're in naira terms, we're paying more. So if even the lack of honesty in that makes it very even difficult to understand what really is at play.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. Because Bloomberg and others, these are not organizations that are frivolous. I've stated this long ago, and it was just, we just waiting for government to either confirm or disprove, and government came to confirm. So, but the price went up, the money, more money that should have been spent on subsidy, at least some, we saved, so that not more money and all that. That's fine. One other thing is I'm really surprised at the little, planning or strategy before the government took off. And I'm surprised because I'm doing some work on Lagos. And I discovered that before President Tinubu, then Senator Tinubu, became governor, there was this elaborate analysis of the state of the condition of Lagos.
Yes.
Land, education, they had all the data. And so when moving forward, it was easy to say, okay, which one do we pick first? We take this, focus on it. That didn't seem to have happened in the transition from Buhari to so, and now it is just was he overconfidence?
Abuja not be Lagos. Abuja not be Lagos.
Was he overconfidence? Lagos is Nigeria is bigger. I'm really surprised because if you see the document that I saw some in the course of the past 2 weeks. Excellent.
Well, in Lagos,
and it made it easy.
Dealing with
Lagos is not Nigeria.
20 local governments.
Yeah.
In Abuja, you are dealing with 774.
No,
that is even more reason why they should be solved.
Exactly.
That is more reason why they should be solved.
The fundamental issues are not new. If we take even something simple as the size of government, Honorable Sonyeri report is 2012. So there are things that have been there, that it's not, Justice Uwe's report is 20 whatever. So there are certain things, and I'm speaking very broadly, there's certain things that are existing that doesn't require
extra things.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take this final topic. Nigeria's healthcare system is in crisis as patients requiring surgery face agonizing delays due to a severe shortage of medical professionals. The mass exodus of doctors from the country has left hospitals understaffed and overwhelmed, with devastating consequences for those in need of urgent medical care. Speaking recently in Abuja, the president of the Nigerian Medical Association, Bala Udu, disclosed that the doctor-patient ratio in Nigeria at the moment is about 1,000% less than the recommendation of the World Health Organization. Data from the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria showed that about 1,056 consultants left the country to seek greener pastures between 2019 and 2023. In public hospitals, especially across Nigeria, surgical wards are operating at a fraction of their capacity. Patients with conditions ranging from appendicitis to cancer are left waiting for months, sometimes years, for procedures that could save or dramatically improve their lives. The backlog of cases grows daily, while the number of skilled surgeons continues to dwindle. Experts in healthcare management have identified some of the reasons for the ugly trend to include brain drain in Nigeria's medical sector. Well, Professor Aworawo, this is not new. It looks like it's getting worse, particularly now that some medical doctors in the UK have been given a 20% pay raise, and doctors earn more in the Middle East. So why should anybody stay here where there is no infrastructure, there's no electricity, and people are killing themselves, overworking the doctors anyway? Professor Aworawo.
Well, it's unfortunate, and it speaks to the general Nigerian condition. The pay is small. When you travel abroad, you earn probably 10 times more. You live well. You're able to. I know a couple of young colleagues who travel abroad. Within 5 years, they're already building houses back home in Nigeria and all that. In fact, less than 5 years, 2-3 years. So when you have the opportunity, you want to take advantage of it. The totality of the Nigerian condition has to improve before this problem is solved. For now, we now have more medical schools, private nursing schools all over the place. Well, maybe when some of them graduate, they will stay back. Many of them will still join others who have gone abroad. But, at the end of the day, what will solve the problem is the improvement in the overall Nigerian condition. So it speaks to all of the things we've been talking about, before now, that reforms that will lead to an improvement in every sector of Nigeria. That is what is required. The president talked about, for instance, agriculture. And when I looked at the countries that are going to import some of the equipment from Belarus, you can imagine.
Brazil.
Yes. In fact, Belarus. Nigeria is going to import equipment from Belarus for agriculture in Nigeria. It speaks to how far back we have been over the years. And it is only when all of this condition of the Nigerian condition improves that the health sector too can benefit from.
Professor Kila?
Well, I think the first thing to be said about this is that this really is the chronicle of a drama foretold. Generally, and specifically when in this studio, when Dr. Ngige had the audacity to come on national TV to say we have more than enough doctors in Nigeria, I knew we were in trouble. I mean, that was the zenith of the trouble. The trouble was building before that. I am surprised. I'm not sure those figures are right. I'm surprised that only 1,056 surgeons have left Nigeria between 2019 and 2023. I'm surprised for a very simple reason. It is rare, and I want our viewers to think about it. It is rare for any Nigerian to go about for treatment and not meet one Nigerian doctor in most of the places they go to. So in my mind, I thought it was a lot more. If this is a figure, it's comforting. It is a chronicle of a drama foretold because given what the world offers, given what Nigeria offers and the way they are treated in Nigeria, it is obvious that they will lift more or less. The way out, I believe, is two things. Number one, Nigeria needs to understand its place in the world. Nigeria cannot compete in terms of payment with the rest of the world with what we can pay our medical personnel. So we have to actively produce more than we need, and we have to become exporters of medical professionals. In doing that, what we need to do to keep the ones we have is to use the word people don't like to hear. We have to subsidize them. We have to put them in a way that when you're a medical person, you have a lot to gain, not in terms of direct salary, but in terms of ancillary benefits. That is the way forward to do it.
Well, more like a tragedy foretold,
Yeah.
because the failure is measured in terms of deaths.
Yes. Well, becomes tragedy.
Yemi Adamolekun.
I mean, just that's literally what I was going to say. That it's not just in terms of doctors leaving, but what that means in terms of the quality of life of Nigerians and the Nigerians we're losing for that.
Well, thank you very much, Yemi Adamolekun. Thank you, Professor Anthony Kila, and thank you very much, Professor David Aworawo. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.